future if not addressed. Wilson Tobiko, KUTV.
Right, that story from Beryl Chelangat, of course, forms the basis of our discussion tonight. And now joining us live via Zoom is John Mututho, the former NACADA chairman. Now we'll be taking a look at what is happening particular in the country and, to be more precise, in Mount Kenya. Good evening.
Good evening, viewers. How are you?
I'm so fine. And let me beam you into the heart of this discussion right away. Of course, drug abuse seems to be a crisis, of course, in this country. Now, this begs the question, just how dire is the situation in the country? Are we probably facing in someone like we should say drug abuse is now a national disaster?
Yes, it is, for sure. During the Central Kenya meeting I've just referred, the Deputy President accurately pointed out that there are three major challenges now in Kenya, or major things that need to be attended to. Number one being terrorism, number two being battery, and number three being drug and alcohol abuse. It's really a big challenge. I would have persuaded him to name alcohol and drug abuse as number one challenge, by the virtue fact of the numbers, high numbers and high mortality. Today I was in Gashie area, and the pastor there was saying that he's barring an average of 4 at Gashie, someplace Gashie, 4 per week. All of them young people and young ladies. You are seeing ladies there transporting changa and other illicits on damos. You think they're transporting chai or tea, and it's all very bad. I want to tell you, I do really appreciate what the government is trying to do, because the start of the journey begins with somebody making a will to go and will free, preparing to take a journey. But this is a tough journey. I've been on it for the last 15, 16 years, and I would like to advise the government to look at it this way so that the whole thing is not messy. Number one, look at it on the two fronts if you have to confront these drugs and alcohol. And the two fronts are supply suppression. Supply suppression, that means cutting off all supplies. And number two is demand reduction, which means that you target the possible consumers and potential consumers, and you try to dissuade them or treat them from that vice. If you look at it at that front, then the government has a lot of options under supply suppression. One of the tools is the Mututho laws, and then there are a whole host of laws under the Public Health Act, on the penal code, also things that kill. There are a lot of things you can do. There are things which are tariff-based, others are non-tariff restrictions, which can all be set. I don't think it would be wise for us to boil ourselves down to arguing with bar owners and the rest of it, because places like Munich, last time I checked, it's quite a while now, had about 250, Munich city in Germany, had about 250 breweries, but nobody dies of alcohol abuse there. What we need is quality check. If you recall Mututho laws, which I really do thank Kenyans, and you in particular, for acknowledging the fine details of that law. It was supposed to generate 4 regulations. Number one was access. Access. That's why we did 300 meters from schools, for instance. The under 18 warnings on all alcoholic drinks, advertisements, and so forth and so on. Access. And then we came up to the licensing regime, and we were very elaborate on that until it was messed up by the county governments. If you look at it that way, access was well handled. Just needs a bit of revision, just to check and reconfirm certain elements. Like that time we had districts, now we have counties, so that you can tidy up those kind of little things.
Right. Let me cut you for a bit. When you talk about the Mututho law, of course, this is something we have been in this kind of situation for quite a long time. Of course, the law are there. One of the key things that it was meant to do was to regulate drinking hours, to control production and sales. It is 10 years down the line, same problem, things still persist. In your own opinion, of course, as a man who once sit on that particular seat, what do you think really, of course, contributed to the failure of these laws not working until right now we are here at this point now having this same discussion? What could have gone wrong?
Yes, I was saying that any law, any good law, starts from a policy, and there was a very well drafted policy by Nakada and the government, and then you come to the bill, then the act of parliament, and then you have the law. The law cannot be implemented without regulations, and there were supposed to be 4 regulations. The 4 regulations were access. Number 2 regulation was quality of alcohol. Number 3 was on treatment of the victims and how it was going to be done. If you look at, let me zero on quality and tell you this, that the regulation on quality has never been published, arising from the Mututho laws. If the government, and I'm sure the Vice President is serious, Deputy President is serious about this issue, if we can only get asking me for a copy of the regulations pertaining to quality, then these problems can be solved. Because if you look at Western Kenya, for instance, by volume, they take more alcohol than Central Kenya. But Central Kenya deaths are in hundreds. In Western side, they don't die of Buza and Chang'an there. So what is this that the Central people or the Mount Kenya people drink that kills them? That is poison. And that was properly addressed in the regulations that I'm talking about. So if Professor Saitoti was still around, and may he rest in peace, and also if all the other interior cabinet secretaries or ministers who followed were able to listen to me and just accept to gazette the regulation on quality, then there would be no issue at all. I can tell you for free, there would be no issue. Then there was the issue, the other regulation was on enforcement. Section 19 of Nakada Act and Section 50 of the Mututho laws provided explicitly how they were going to do the policy. It's not by every Dick, Tom, and Harry. Specialist unit that was well defined in that particular thing. Again, that regulation on enforcement was never gazetted. That means out of the 4, only the one on access was gazetted, and still needs a bit of amendment, fine-tuning, like I said. The one on treatment was not gazetted. The one on quality was not gazetted, and the one on enforcement was not gazetted. If only the Deputy President can ask his hardworking PS, Professor Kidiki, he's a lawyer, to go through and check where are these regulations. What is this that's supposed to be done by who? All these problems can be sorted out. So It's not a question of how old the laws are, but it's a question of willingness by some individuals particularly, or who have been coerced not to gazette, I use the word coerced, not to gazette full set of regulations. That's it. The simple straight.
Allow me to cut you short for a while. When you talk about regulations, and of course, you gave a good comparison between Western Kenya, who leads in, of course, alcohol consumption when you go by the Nakada statistics. But some of these problems, and back then it used to be quite a contentious discussion, and many to some extent blame the Nakada and of course this drug and the Mututho law, of course. One of them is heavy taxation that was imposed on liquor, and some opted for this cheap brew that end up, many people from the parts of Mount Kenya, of course, end up consuming this illicit brew, and such problem now began to emerge. Do you, in your own assessment, of course, agree with this let me call them allegations, because at the time you were on the top of the helm of Nakada, and some even blame you for, the impediment that you are seeing right now.
Let me say this. This thing about heavy taxation on alcohol as a deterrent is misinformed. You cannot sort out this problem by overtaxing the severized brewers. But the problem is that how sure are you that even those very big brewers are not producing alcohol? What is alcohol to me? Alcohol is anything which is produced under that potable spirit standard, and which does not define exact purity of that ethanol. I don't want to go into details of that, but if you look at it very, very carefully, you really sympathize with Kenyans. How?
Right. It seems like we have lost there some connection, but you are talking about a very important issue here that we need to discuss, and now this is where we shift focus to the real problem that is facing, of course, Mount Kenya, that has caught the attention of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and now holding a crisis meeting in an effort to avert this crisis. And do you think these efforts now that and the initiatives that are being played right now will actually solve this issue?
Sorry?
And of course, do you think we'll solve this issue? Now the initiative to eradicate.
Yes, we can solve. If we all come honestly and with clean hands, we will solve this problem. So personally, if I was to be at the helm there again, 6 months is not more than enough to sort out this mess. It is simple truth. If you understand the logistics of it, just like a computer guru would understand the logs and what have you, I will sort out this mess.
President Rigathi Gachagua has today consulted.
Well, we apologize for that mix-up, but you have spoken about a very interesting things here, Mr. Mututho. You say, like, if, of course, you are given 6 months, you'll solve this. I wonder how will you do this, because you're a man, of course, who you held such position, and what stopped you, of course, what stopped you then from doing what you want to do now?
I would say, referring to the last meeting, at the time when the Deputy President was addressing the crowd, the group, the officers, I was there, I witnessed, and one name popped up. Who is the chief distributor? Who is the chief distributor of these e-receipts? Who protects all these e-receipts? The person was named. I don't want to name them here because I don't want to go into useless legal battles. But the person is named, is known. And by coincidence, that happened to have been my boss. So how would you have a boss who is the principal distributor, and then have Mututho here who is trying to bring sobriety? It is not possible. And I worked under very, very hard conditions most of the time. And to hire a police officer to go and do the raids with my own money, I was on a salary of 63,000 shillings a month. And there are days I could spend up to 100,000 shillings in a day doing those raids you saw, the popular Mututho raids. So I will not try to point names and say who did this, who did that. All I'm saying, to a maximum of 6 months, given what is legally already in law, or what is already in place without even going back to the further reference to Parliament, we can solve this problem. But we must face it with honesty. We must remove the commercial element in those implementing supply suppression. And like I said earlier, supply suppression means cutting off. We still have the big chunk of regulatory mechanism that demand that we need to do.
All right. Now, from where you sit, of course, you are once in this seat, of course, I'll still keep on repeating on that. Tell me, help us to understand this. Why is, this, illicit brew, to be precise, is so rampant in Mount Kenya, of course? What is happening? What happened during, according to your statistics back then? What will say is the problem?
I said that the whole problem started in 1978-79. I had said it in previous interviews with yourself, but internet doesn't forget. So if anybody cares to check, we'll check. From 78 to 79 there was a policy, clandestine policy, to control the populations in central area. It's there. And this is something just close to genocide, because it is targeting a particular group of people who are around Mount Kenya. Unfortunately, we have had instances now in Caribbean land, we have had instances in Moreland and Kisii, just a few instances. But the truth be told, that all those people supplying that dangerous stuff originated from Naivasha. I represented Naivasha. So trust my word, trust my instinct, trust my feeling that these people are on contract, special contract, to undermine the populace in Mount Kenya area. That's a fact. And anybody who doubts that, let him come, invite us for an interview. I'll give detailed, shocking details about those people. Like one person, one of the people you see, you dance around all over now today here, who is in high levels and everywhere, dancing all over. In the parliamentary, the 9th parliament, specifically said that particular character should be prosecuted for the death of 113 people due to Kumikumi.
All right.
The man who investigated is still alive. Call him. When he was in charge, Mwiruri, the one who was in charge of Gatondo North, Kariuki Mwiruri, call him, even after this show. Tell him to tell you what did they find out. How did the people die? It was put loud, clearly, it is there in parliamentary records, that a certain factory here, which is still here, being receiving honors, was responsible. It was not the Mkuru Ruben staff, no. It was from a separate thing. And then there was the others. Remember the plastics. You remember the sachets and all that. All these people are supposed to be somewhere in committee maximum prison. But because we glorify sin, because we glorify mess, right, just like you are seeing the case of Shakahura, right, Kenyans have this bad habit that they think some people are made by lesser God and they have a right to die. Right. So let's begin there. Let's get this character.
I hear you.
Who is this? Who killed 113 people in one go, and several are wounded? Yeah, and still.
For the interest of time. For the interest of time, of course, you have mentioned, something that is worth looking into. But now you say you will give shocking details, and for those who are watching you right now, just wondering, why wait for then? Why don't you just give us those shocking details right now and clear the air?
There is something which is called the right to reply.
All right.
I would like to give you the names in confidence, call them for an interview. I will come physically and face them, and I'll call them murderers.
All right.
People who kill. Forget about Shakahora.
All right.
With you, the dead. Look at this person who killed